The north is cold and full of whispers.
The great hall of Riverrun was silent. Robb Stark stood before his assembled bannermen with a crown in his hands. Not on his head, in his hands. The bronze and iron circlet that Lord Hoster Tully's smith had forged. 9 black iron spikes, shaped like longswords, hammered bronze incised with runes of the first men. The crown the great Jon had placed on his head weeks ago when they'd proclaimed him king in the north. The crown Robb was about to give away. "My lords," Robb said. His voice carried across the hall. Every eye was fixed on him. "We declared independence. We crowned me king in the north because we said the dragons were dead and we would bow to no southern king." The great Jon said it. "I believed it. You all believed it." He paused, set the crown on the table before him. "We were wrong." The hall erupted. Shouts, protests. The great Jon was on his feet, his massive frame dominating the space. "What are you saying, boy? We crowned you. We chose independence. You can't just—" "The dragons aren't dead," Robb interrupted. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "One dragon lives. One dragon was raised among us. One dragon has Stark blood and northern values and everything we thought was lost when the Targaryens fell." Catelyn Stark, sitting beside Edmure Tully, felt her heart stop. She knew what was coming. Had known since Robb called this council. Had tried to talk him out of it. Failed. "Jon Snow," Robb said. "My brother, my cousin, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. He is the dragon we thought was dead, and I'm proposing we crown him king of the 7 kingdoms." The silence that followed was absolute. Then chaos. Every lord shouting at once, some in fury, some in confusion, some in what might have been agreement. Robb stood through it all, waiting for the storm to pass. The great Jon's voice boomed over the others. "You want us to crown a Targaryen? After everything Robert's rebellion was about? After the Mad King burned your grandfather alive? After Rhaegar started the war that killed tens of thousands? I want us to crown a Stark," Robb said firmly. "Jon was raised by my father. He follows the old gods. He knows the North. He values honor and duty over ambition. Yes, he has Targaryen blood. But he also has our blood. Lyanna Stark's blood. The blood of Winterfell. He's a bastard," Lord Karstark said. His voice was cold. "Whatever his parentage, he was born a Snow. You can't crown a bastard." "My father legitimized him," Robb said, in his final letters before his death. "Jon Stark is his legal name. Son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. Legitimate by Northern law and by my father's decree as Lord of Winterfell." "Northern law doesn't make him a king," Mage Mormont said. "Even if he's legitimate, even if he's Rhaegar's son, why should we support his claim? Why should the North fight to put a Targaryen on the Iron Throne when we just declared independence to get away from Southern kings?" This was the crucial moment. Robb had prepared for this question, had spent days crafting the argument. Everything depended on how the Northern lords received it. "Because this isn't surrender," Robb said. "This is victory." The great Jon said we bowed to dragons, not to Southern kings. Well, now we're putting our dragon on the throne. A dragon raised in Winterfell. A dragon who prays to heart trees, not septs. A dragon whose first loyalty will always be to the North, because the North is where he was raised, and who he is. He looked around the hall. Think about what this means. For 300 years, the North has been ruled from King's Landing by people who don't understand us, who follow gods we don't worship, who make laws that don't fit our way of life. But if Jon takes the throne, the North rules the 7 kingdoms, not the other way around. That's sophistry, Roose Bolton said. His soft voice somehow carried despite its quietness. You're dressing up submission as victory. Jon Snow sits on the Iron Throne, and you expect us to believe the North is in charge? He'll be in King's Landing. We'll be here, and he'll make decisions based on the needs of 7 kingdoms, not just ours. Which is why I'll be his hand, Robb said. Why the North will have more power at court than any region has had since Aegon's conquest. Why we'll negotiate terms that give us autonomy, the same autonomy Dorne got when they joined through marriage instead of conquest. What terms? The Blackfish asked. He was one of the few who hadn't shouted, just watched, calculated. What are you proposing? Robb had prepared this too. First, I serve as hand of the king. What the king dreams, the hand builds. That's the saying. Jon's dreams will be shaped by Northern Council. Second, The North retains King in the North as a subsidiary title, the same way Dorne's rulers call themselves Prince instead of Lord. Third, we maintain our own laws where they don't conflict with the realm's needs. Trial by combat, the right to execute our own criminals, our customs regarding marriage and inheritance. Fourth, Robb continued, we protect the old gods. Jon will be crowned before a heart tree as well as in whatever southern ceremony they require. The North's religion is acknowledged and respected. Fifth, tax autonomy. We collect our own taxes and send an agreed amount to King's Landing, but they don't tell us how to manage our own revenues. Sixth, Robb said, his voice strengthening, the Night's Watch becomes a priority. Jon knows what's coming from beyond the wall. He's fought the dead. He understands the threat. With Jon on the throne, the Watch will finally get the support it needs. The real war, the war against the others, will be taken seriously. The lords were quieter now, listening, considering. Robb pressed his advantage. This is the pact of ice and fire fulfilled, Robb said. 100 years ago, Prince Jacaerys promised Lord Cregan Stark that a Targaryen princess would marry into House Stark. That promise was never kept. The Targaryens owed us that marriage for 3 centuries. Jon Snow is that debt paid. Ice and fire united. Dragon and wolf. And instead of the Starks serving the Targaryens serve the Starks. You're asking us to give up independence we just declared, the great Jon said, but his voice had lost some of its fury. He was thinking now, calculating, asking us to trust that a boy we've barely seen in years will remember he's Northern when he's sitting on a throne made of swords. I'm asking you to trust my father's judgment, Robb said quietly. Ned Stark protected Jon for 14 years, lived with dishonor, let everyone think he'd betrayed my mother. All to keep Jon safe, because he believed Jon was worth protecting, worth saving, worth legitimizing. If my father trusted Jon enough to stake his honor on keeping him alive, we can trust him enough to make him king. Catelyn stood. Every eye turned to her. May I speak? Of course, mother, Robb said. Catelyn took a breath. This was hard, harder than anything she'd done, because she was about to support the boy she'd hated for 14 years. The boy whose existence had tormented her, the bastard who she'd said should have died instead of Bran, except he wasn't a bastard. And her hatred had been based on a lie. I hated Jon Snow, Catelyn said. Her voice was steady despite the emotion beneath. I was cruel to him, said terrible things, wished him gone. And I was wrong. Not just wrong about his parentage, wrong about who he was. Jon Snow is Ned's nephew, my nephew by marriage, and he is everything Robb says. Honorable, dutiful, Northern to his core. She looked around the hall. I understand your hesitation, your fear. A Targaryen on the throne frightens you because of the Mad King, because of Rhaegar, because of everything Robert's rebellion was about. But Jon is not Aerys. He's not even Rhaegar. He's Ned Stark's son in every way that matters except blood. And if we're going to fight this war, if we're going to challenge the Lannisters and win, we need more than just the North. We need allies. We need legitimacy. We need a claim that other kingdoms will rally to. Jon gives us that, Catelyn continued. As king in the North, Robb can fight to liberate our territory and rescue my daughters. But he can't take King's Landing, can't remove the Lannisters from power, can't unite the realm. Jon can. With the right alliances, with the right support, and with Robb at his side as hand, shaping policy ensuring Northern interests are protected. You're his mother, Mage Mormont said. Of course you support what he wants. But what does Jon want? Has anyone asked him? Because from what I remember, Jon Snow took vows to the Night's Watch. Vows that renounce crowns and claims. How do you crown a man who's sworn never to wear a crown? Jon was released from his vows by Lord Commander Mormont, Robb said. We've been over this. He's free to accept titles and claims. The question isn't whether he can be king. It's whether he will be king, whether we can convince him to accept the crown. Where is he? Galbart Glover asked. Why isn't he here defending this idea himself? Because I haven't asked him yet, Robb admitted. I wanted to know if you would support him before I brought him into this discussion. There's no point putting Jon through the ordeal of debating his own coronation if the lords won't accept him regardless. So you're asking us to commit to crowning a man who hasn't agreed to be crowned, Roose Bolton said, to support a claim that the claimant might refuse. That's backwards, Lord Robb. It's practical, Robb countered. Jon will do his duty. I know him. If we tell him the North needs him on the throne, he'll accept. Not because he wants power. He doesn't. But because he understands duty. Because he's been raised to put the needs of others before his own desires. He'll accept because it's the right thing to do, not because it's what he wants. That's the kind of king we need, the Blackfish said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. A king who sees the throne as a burden, not a prize. Who accepts power as duty rather than ambition. That's what made Aegon the Conqueror great. He unified the realm because it needed unifying, not because he wanted to be king. If Jon Snow accepts the crown stoically, as an obligation, he'll be a better king than any man who's ever wanted it. You support this? Edmure asked his uncle. I do, the Blackfish said, because the Riverlands can't win this war alone. The North can't win it alone. We need allies. We need to split the Lannisters' support. We need houses that stayed loyal to the Targaryens, to have a reason to turn against the current regime. Jon's claim does that. And if Robb serves his hand, if the North maintains autonomy, if we protect our interests while uniting the realm against the real enemy, then yes, I support crowning Jon Snow. The great Jon was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the table where Robb's crown sat, picked it up, studied the bronze and iron, the 9 longsword spikes, the runes of the first men. Torhen Stark knelt to a dragon, the great Jon said. Gave up his crown without a fight, because he knew his army couldn't win. We've called him the king who knelt ever since. Some with respect, some with contempt. But he saved thousands of northern lives that day. Made a choice between pride and survival. He looked at Robb. You're making the opposite choice. Not kneeling to a dragon, crowning one, but a dragon of our blood. Raised in our ways. And you're telling us it's not surrender. It's conquest. The North taking the Iron Throne instead of the Iron Throne taking the North. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Robb said. Then I'll support it, the great Jon said. On one condition. You bring Jon Snow here. You make him stand before us, and you make him swear, in front of the old gods, in front of these lords, in front of everyone, that he'll put the North first. That he'll remember where he came from. That he won't become some southern king who forgets his people. If he'll swear that, I'll support his claim. I'll swear the same, Mage Mormont said. Jon Snow can have House Mormont's support if he promises to stay northern, to remember the wall, to protect the old gods and the old ways. One by one, lords stood, made their conditions, their requirements, their demands. But underlying all of it was the same message. They would support Jon, not enthusiastically. Not without reservations, but they would support him if he proved himself worthy. Roose Bolton was one of the last to speak. I'll support him, but I want something in writing, a formal charter guaranteeing northern autonomy, signed by Jon before he's crowned, something that binds him legally, not just morally. If you can provide that, House Bolton will march under his banner. Done, Robb said. We'll draft the charter, Jon will sign it, all of you will witness it, and then we'll crown him properly. Before a heart tree, with a crown that represents both his heritages, and with the understanding that this is a northern victory, not a northern surrender. The council continued for hours. Details were hammered out. Provisions were debated. Language was refined. By the end, they had the framework of a charter that would govern Jon's kingship, guaranteeing northern autonomy, protecting the old gods, ensuring Robb's position as hand, and binding Jon to prioritize the Night's Watch and the threat beyond the wall. When the council finally ended and lords dispersed, Catelyn found Robb alone in his solar. He looked exhausted. Did I do the right thing? Robb asked. I don't know, Catelyn admitted. But it's done now. The lords support it. Now you just have to convince Jon. That's the hard part, Robb said. Jon never wanted power, never sought recognition. He joined the Night's Watch specifically to remove himself from succession questions. And now I'm asking him to accept the biggest crown in Westeros. He's going to hate me. He'll understand. Catelyn said. Jon knows duty, knows sacrifice. If you frame it correctly, if you help him see that this is necessary, he'll accept. Not happily, but he'll accept. I hope you're right, Robb said. Because if Jon refuses, we're back to independence. And independence means we fight alone, and fighting alone means we probably lose. Jon Snow stood in Riverrun's Godswood and tried to understand what Robb was asking him to do. You want to make me king, Jon said. His voice was flat, disbelieving. Yes, Robb said simply. King of the 7 kingdoms. Yes. The Iron Throne. Yes. Jon laughed. It was a bitter sound. Robb, I was a bastard 3 months ago, a brother of the Night's Watch 2 months ago, and now you want to put a crown on my head and make me king? That's insane. It's necessary, Robb said. Jon, listen to me. Really listen. The North can't win this war alone. The Riverlands can't win it alone. We need allies. We need legitimacy. We need a claim that will split the Lannisters' support and bring other kingdoms to our side. Your claim does that. I don't have a claim, Jon protested. I'm a bastard. Father legitimized me, but that makes me Jon Stark, not Jon Targaryen. I'm not a prince. I'm not— You're Rhaegar's son, Robb interrupted. The Crown Prince's legitimate son if the marriage to my aunt was real. That makes you the rightful heir by Targaryen succession law. Better claim than Stannis. Better than Renly. Better than anyone except maybe Daenerys. And she's across the narrow sea with no army. The marriage might not have been legal, Jon said. Rhaegar was already married to Elia Martell. Polygamy hasn't been practiced since Maegor the Cruel. The faith would never accept it. The realm would never accept it. The realm accepted Aegon the Conqueror's 2 wives, Robb pointed out, because he had dragons and they couldn't stop him. You don't have dragons, but you have something just as valuable. You have us. The North. The Riverlands. And potentially Dorne if we play it right. Dorne hates me, Jon said. Or they would if they knew I existed. I'm the son of the man who abandoned Elia, who left her and her children to die while he ran off with my mother. The Martells will never support me. They might, Robb said. If we offer them justice, if we give them what they've wanted for 15 years, vengeance against the people who murdered Elia and her children. Gregor Clegane's head, Tywin's admission of guilt. Recognition that what was done to Elia was wrong, combined with a marriage alliance, you to Arianne Martell maybe, and we might bring Dorne to our side. Jon's head was spinning. You've thought about this. Really thought about it. This isn't just a desperate idea. You've actually planned this. I've done nothing but think about it for 2 weeks, Robb admitted. Ever since I learned the truth about your parentage. Jon, I'm king in the North because the Lords crowned me. I didn't seek it, didn't want it, but I accepted it because the North needed a king, and I was Ned Stark's son, and it was my duty. Now I'm asking you to do the same thing. Accept a crown you don't want because the realm needs you. The realm doesn't need me, Jon said. It needs you. You're the young wolf. You've won every battle you've fought. You're the one people follow. People follow me in the North, Robb said. But I can't unite the 7 kingdoms. I don't have a claim they'll recognize. You do. And more than that, you have something I don't? You have the Red Priestess's endorsement. Jon froze. What? Melisandre, Robb said. Stannis's Red Priestess. She's been looking into her flames, seeking the prince that was promised, Azor Ahai reborn. And she sees you, Jon. Not Stannis. You. She's ready to declare it publicly if you accept the crown. I don't believe in her god, Jon said. I follow the old gods. I don't want some foreign priestess declaring me a prophesied hero. You don't have to want it, Robb said. You just have to accept it. Use it. Her declaration will bring believers to your side. People who think you're chosen by their god. It's a weapon, Jon. And in war you use every weapon you have. This is wrong, Jon said. He turned away, staring at the heart tree. Its red leaves rustled in the wind. Its carved face watched with knowing eyes. I took vows. I swore to wear no crowns, to hold no lands, to father no children. And you're asking me to break all of that, to become exactly what I swore I'd never be. You were released from those vows, Robb said. Lord Commander Mormont gave you dispensation. You didn't break your word. You were freed from it. Semantics, Jon said. I know what I swore. I know what it meant. And this, becoming king, it spits on everything I promised. Or it fulfills a bigger promise, Robb said quietly. He moved to stand beside Jon. You swore to defend the realm, to stand against the darkness, to be the shield that guards the realms of men. That was your oath. And how better to fulfill it than by becoming king, by having the power to actually prepare the realm for what's coming. The others are real, Jon. The dead walk. And when they come south, we need to be ready. A king can make the realm ready. A brother of the Night's Watch can't. Jon closed his eyes. Robb's words cut through his protests because they were true. The real war was coming. The war that mattered. And Jon had left the wall because he understood that stopping it required more than just manning the battlements. If I do this, Jon said slowly, I want certain things. Non-negotiable things. Name them, Robb said. First, you're my hand, Jon said. I don't know how to rule. Don't know Southern politics. Don't know the great houses, or their histories, or their alliances. You'll handle all of that. I'll be the figurehead. You'll be the actual ruler. What the king dreams, the hand builds, Robb agreed. Done. Second, the Night's Watch becomes a priority, Jon said. Not something we deal with eventually, not something we address when it's convenient. Immediate priority. We send men, supplies, dragon glass weapons. We prepare for the real war. Done, Robb said. That's already in the charter the Northern Lords agreed to. Third, I'm crowned before a heart tree, Jon said. Not in some sept, not by some septon. I follow the old gods. If I'm going to be king, I'm going to be a northern king who prays to heart trees, not the seven. We'll do both, Robb said. You'll need the southern ceremony eventually for legitimacy. But the first crown, the real crown, will be placed on your head in a god's wood by northern lords. That's acceptable? I suppose, Jon said. Fourth, the North keeps its autonomy. The deal you negotiated with the lords, that holds. I'm not spending 15 years as king just to turn the North into another southern province that follows southern laws and southern gods. Agreed, Robb said. It's already in writing. And fifth, Jon said, his voice hardening. I get to say no. If you ask me to do something that violates my conscience, if you want me to commit atrocities or betray my values, or become another mad king, I can refuse. I'm not going to be a puppet. I'll listen to your counsel. I'll follow your advice most of the time. But ultimate decisions are mine. Understood. Robb was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Understood. You're the king. Final authority rests with you. I'm your hand, your advisor, your voice in council. But you can overrule me if you truly believe I'm wrong. Then I'll do it, Jon said. He sounded like a man accepting an execution, not a crown. I'll be your king, not because I want to, not because I think I deserve it, but because someone has to be. And apparently you've all decided that someone is me. Thank you, Robb said quietly. Don't thank me, Jon replied. Just promise me this won't be for nothing. Promise me we're doing this to save the realm, not just to win a war. Promise me it matters. It matters, Robb promised. More than you know. More than any of us know. But it matters. And you're the only person who can do this. Jon turned to face him. When do we tell the lords? Tomorrow, Robb said. We gather everyone. You stand before them. You accept the crown. And then we start building the coalition that will take King's Landing and put you on the Iron Throne. Tomorrow, Jon repeated. The word felt like a death sentence. But he'd made his choice. Duty over desire. Sacrifice over comfort. The North's way. Ned Stark's way. Father Jon thought, looking at the heart tree. I hope you'd be proud of this. I hope I'm doing the right thing. Because if I'm wrong, if this is a mistake, it's going to cost thousands of lives. The heart tree said nothing, just watched with its carved eyes, judging, waiting. Jon left the godswood and prepared himself for the hardest thing he'd ever done. Tomorrow, he would become a king, and nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Jon stood before the assembled northern and river lords in Riverrun's great hall. He wore simple clothing, leather and wool, northern practical garb. No crown yet, no royal regalia. Just Jon Snow, standing before lords who were about to make him something he'd never wanted to be. Robb spoke first. My lords, Jon has agreed to accept your support. He will take the crown, he will press his claim to the Iron Throne, and he will do it with the understanding that he rules as a northern king, with northern values, guided by northern counsel. The great Jon stood, Jon Snow, or Jon Stark, or whatever name you choose. I stood before Robb and told him, I'd support you if you swore to stay northern, to remember where you came from, To protect the old gods and the wall and the way of life we've had for 8,000 years. Will you swear that? Here? Now? Before these witnesses? Jon met the great Jon's eyes. I swear it. I was raised in Winterfell. I follow the old gods. I know what's coming from beyond the wall because I fought it. I will never forget any of that. If I take the crown, I take it as a Stark first and a Targaryen second. The North comes first. Always. Not good enough, Mage Mormont said. The North comes first until it conflicts with the other 6 kingdoms. Then what? When you have to choose between Northern interests and the realm's interests, which do you pick? I pick both, Jon said. Or I find a third option that serves everyone. I'm not going to promise the North will always win every dispute. That's not realistic. But I promise I'll never forget where I came from. I'll never make decisions that betray Northern values, and I'll have Robb as hand to make sure I keep that promise. What about the Red Priestess? Galbart Glover asked. We hear she's going to declare you some prophesied king. Are you going to start burning people for her god? Force us to abandon the old gods? No, Jon said flatly. I don't believe in Rhaelor. I follow the old gods. If Melisandre wants to declare me Azor Ahai or the prince that was promised, or whatever prophecy she believes in, that's her choice. But I'm not converting. I'm not forcing anyone else to convert, and I'm not burning people alive. The North keeps the old gods. That's non-negotiable. What about Dorne? Roose Bolton asked. His soft voice somehow carried despite the crowd. The Martells hate your father. Hate the fact that he abandoned Elia for Lyanna. How do you plan to win their support when your very existence is an insult to their family? I don't know, Jon admitted. Maybe I can't. Maybe Dorne will never support me. But I'm willing to try. To offer them justice for Elia's murder. To acknowledge that what Rhaegar did, leaving his wife, starting a war, was wrong. To give them vengeance against the people who actually killed her. If that's not enough, then we fight without Dorne. But I'll try. And the Tyrells? Edmure Tully asked. They're currently allied with the Lannisters. They have the largest army in Westeros. How do you bring them to your side? I don't know that either, Jon said. I'm not a politician. I'm not a strategist. I'm a fighter who's done his best to stay out of Southern politics my entire life. But I have Robb. I have all of you. I have advisors who understand these things, and I'll listen to them. That's what a good king does. Listens to wise counsel, and makes the best decisions he can. The lords murmured. Jon's honesty was refreshing. He wasn't promising them easy victories or simple solutions. He was admitting his limitations while committing to do his best. One more question, the Blackfish said. Why should you be king? Not why Robb thinks you should be king. Not why the Red Priestess thinks you're prophesied. Why do you think you should sit the Iron Throne? Jon was silent for a long moment. He looked at Robb, at Catelyn, at the assembled lords, at Ghost, who sat silently in the corner, red eyes watching everything. I don't think I should be king, Jon said finally. I think someone needs to be king. And I think the current options are all terrible. Joffrey's a bastard born of incest and probably a sadist. Stannis is rigid and merciless, and would burn half the realm to enforce his claim. Renly's dead. Robb has no claim Southerners will recognize. And Daenerys is across the narrow sea with no way to return. So that leaves me, Jon continued, a bastard, legitimized bastard, who nobody wants. Who has a claim nobody believes in, who doesn't want the job, but who might be able to unite enough people to actually remove the Lannisters and prepare the realm for what's coming. That's it. That's my entire qualification. I'm the least terrible option in a field of terrible options. And I'll tell you what I will do if you crown me, Jon said, his voice strengthening. I'll listen to counsel. I'll protect the wall. I'll prepare for the others. I'll try to be just. I'll try to be fair. I'll try to balance the needs of 7 kingdoms while keeping the North's interests protected. And I'll fail. Constantly. Because I'm not Aegon the Conqueror. I'm not Jaehaerys the Conciliator. I'm just Jon Snow. A bastard boy who got pushed into something he never wanted. But I'll try. That's all I can promise. I'll try to be a king worth following. The hall was silent when he finished. Then the great Jon laughed. Well said, boy. I don't want a king who thinks he's perfect. Give me a king who knows he'll make mistakes and tries anyway. That's the kind of man who can actually learn and grow. He drew his greatsword, knelt, laid the blade at Jon's feet. The North remembers. And the North knows its own. I don't give a damn about Targaryen blood. I care about Stark blood. And you're more Stark than Targaryen. So I'll follow you. Jon Stark. Jon Snow. Jon Targaryen. Whatever name you take. House Umber bends the knee. House Mormont stands with you, Major said, kneeling. You promised to protect the wall and the old gods. That's enough for me. One by one, the northern lords knelt, drew their weapons, laid them before Jon, swore their oaths. House Glover, House Manderly, House Hornwood, even House Bolton, with Rose's soft voice pledging support that Jon didn't trust but accepted. The river lords followed. Edmure Tully, the Blackfish, Houses Mallister, Blackwood, Bracken, Vance, all kneeling, all pledging support. When it was done, when every lord had sworn, Robb stepped forward with the crown, the bronze and iron circlet with 9 longsword spikes. This was meant for me, Robb said. The crown of the kings of winter, forged fresh at River Run when we declared independence. But I'm giving it to you, not because you're a Targaryen, because you're a Stark, because you're Pack, and because the North crowns its own. He placed the crown on Jon's head. The weight settled immediately, heavy, pressing down, a physical burden matching the metaphorical one. All hail Jon Stark, the great Jon roared. First of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm. Jon Stark, the hall echoed. King Jon, the Wolf King. Jon stood there with the crown on his head and felt like his soul was being crushed. This was wrong. This wasn't what he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be a brother of the Night's Watch, a defender, a shield in the darkness. But instead he was a king, and there was no going back. Ghost approached from the corner, pressed against Jon's leg. The direwolf's presence was grounding, familiar, real. Thank you, Jon whispered to Ghost. The wolf said nothing. As always, Ghost was completely silent. But his red eyes conveyed understanding. They would face this together, king and direwolf, man and wolf, ice and fire. Whatever came next, they would endure it, because that's what Starks did. They endured. They survived. They did their duty, and Jon had just accepted the heaviest duty imaginable. The lords were celebrating now, drinking, toasting their new king, making plans for the campaign ahead. But Jon just stood there with the crown on his head and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or if this was exactly what he was meant to do. He didn't know, couldn't know, could only move forward and hope he survived what came next, because he was king now. And kings didn't get to quit. They ruled until they died. Jon prayed to the old gods that his death would be a long time coming, and that he'd do enough good before it arrived to justify the cost. That night, Jon couldn't sleep. He lay in his chambers with Ghost beside him, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events. The crown sat on a table nearby, bronze and iron, 9 longsword spikes. The weight of it still pressed on his head even though he'd removed it hours ago. A knock at the door. "Come in," Jon called. Robb entered. He looked as exhausted as Jon felt. "Can't sleep either?" "No," Jon admitted. "Keep thinking about what we've done. What it means. What comes next." "We crowned you king," Robb said. "That's what we did. And what comes next is we build a coalition, win allies, march on King's Landing, and hope we don't all die in the process." "You make it sound simple," Jon said. "It's not," Robb admitted. He sat on the bed beside Jon. "It's the hardest thing we'll ever do, but we're doing it together. You're not alone in this, Jon. I'm with you. The North is with you. We'll figure it out." "What about Melisandre?" Jon asked. "When does she make her declaration?" "Tomorrow," Robb said. "She's been waiting for you to accept the crown. Now that you have, she'll announce publicly that you're the prince that was promised, that her god has chosen you. That Stannis was a false candidate." "Stannis is going to be furious," Jon said. "Stannis is already furious," Robb corrected. "He's been brooding ever since Melisandre started seeing you in her flames instead of him. This just makes it official. But Jon, we need his support, or at least his neutrality. If Stannis fights us, if he splits our forces, we can't win. So what do we offer him?" Jon asked. "Storm's End," Robb said. "His ancestral seat. The castle that should have been his after Robert's rebellion, but was given to Renly instead. We promise him Storm's End and formal acknowledgement as our most loyal supporter. Make him feel valued instead of discarded. Will that be enough? Jon asked. I don't know, Robb admitted. Stannis wanted the throne, believed it was his by right. Watching someone else take it, especially someone younger with a claim he doesn't recognize, will wound his pride deeply. But Stannis is also pragmatic. If he sees that fighting us is pointless, that we have the stronger position, he might accept a subordinate role rather than dying for a lost cause. And if he doesn't accept it? Jon pressed. Then we have another enemy, Robb said grimly. And the war becomes even harder. But we'll deal with that when it happens. For now, we prepare for Melisandre's announcement. And we pray that Stannis chooses survival over pride. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jon asked, Do you think Father would approve of what we're doing? Robb was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Father was the most honorable man I've ever known. But he also lied for 14 years to protect you. He let people think he'd broken his marriage vows. He dishonored himself to keep you safe. So maybe he'd understand. Maybe he'd see that sometimes you have to compromise your principles to achieve a greater good. Or maybe he'd see this as a betrayal, Jon said, using his sacrifice to justify putting me on a throne he never wanted me anywhere near. We'll never know, Robb said. Father's dead. We can only do what we think is right and hope he'd be proud. But Jon, I believe in this. I believe you can be a good king, a just king. A king who actually prepares the realm for what's coming instead of just playing the Game of Thrones. And I think Father would believe that too. I hope you're right, Jon said, because if you're wrong, we're all going to die for nothing. Then we better make sure I'm right, Robb said. He stood. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be difficult. Melisandre's announcement will cause chaos. We need to be ready to deal with the fallout. He left. Jon lay back down, Ghost pressed against him. The direwolf's warmth was comforting, familiar, constant. We're doing this, Jon whispered to Ghost. We're actually doing this, challenging for the Iron Throne. Becoming king, everything I swore I'd never do. Ghost said nothing, just pressed closer. And eventually, despite everything, Jon slept. He dreamed of fire and ice, of a great war coming, of dead men walking and darkness spreading, and of himself standing alone with a flaming sword, holding back the night. When he woke, the crown was still there, still waiting, still demanding to be worn. Jon dressed, placed the crown on his head, and prepared to face whatever came next, because he was king now, and kings didn't get to hide from their responsibilities. They faced them, however terrible they might be, and Jon would face his, until death released him, or until the realm no longer needed him, whichever came first. The Red Priestess's revelation, Melisandre of Ashai, stood before the assembled host in Riverrun's courtyard and prepared to shatter Stannis Baratheon's world. She wore her red robes, brilliant in the morning sun. Her red hair seemed to glow. Her red eyes, so pale they were almost pink, swept across the crowd. Thousands of soldiers, hundreds of lords and knights, and at the center, two men who would define the realm's future. Jon Snow, wearing the bronze and iron crown of the north, and Stannis Baratheon, standing rigid with fury barely contained. I am Melisandre of Ashai, she began, her voice carried across the courtyard without shouting. Priestess of R'hllor, the Lord of Light, the Red God, the Heart of Fire. I have served Stannis Baratheon for years, believing him to be the prince that was promised. Azor Ahai reborn, the warrior who would stand against the darkness. Stannis' jaw clenched. He knew what was coming, had known since Jon accepted the crown, but hearing it spoken aloud would make it real, undeniable. I was wrong, Melisandre said. The words fell like hammers. The visions I saw were true, but my interpretation was false. I looked into the flames and saw a king who would save the realm. I assumed that king was Stannis Baratheon, because he was the king I served, but R'hllor was showing me a different king, a true king, the king who would actually fulfill the prophecy. She turned to face Jon. When I prayed for glimpses of Azor Ahai, R'hllor showed me only snow. I thought this meant winter, darkness, the enemy. But the Lord was showing me a name. Jon Snow, capitalized, specific. The man standing before you now. "This is heresy," one of Stannis's knights muttered. Others echoed him. But Melisandre pressed on. "The prophecy states, when the red star bleeds and the darkness gathers, Azor Ahai shall be born again amidst smoke and salt to wake dragons out of stone," Melisandre recited. "Jon Snow fulfills this prophecy more completely than Stannis Baratheon ever could. He was born at the Tower of Joy," Melisandre continued, "where his mother, Lyanna Stark, died in a bed of blood. Dawn, the sword of House Dane, forged from a fallen star, was present, bloodied from the battle. Salt from tears, smoke from the tower's braziers, and dragons, the Targaryen blood in his veins, waiting to be awakened. More than that," she said, her voice strengthening, "Jon Snow embodies the very title of the prophecy, the Song of Ice and Fire. He is Stark and Targaryen both, ice through his mother Lyanna, fire through his father Rhaegar. The union of opposites. The balance the realm needs. The Woods Witch prophesied that the prince that was promised would come from the line of Aerys II and Rhaella Targaryen," Melisandre said. "Jon Snow descends from that line through Rhaegar. Stannis Baratheon does not. The bloodline requirement is clear. Jon fulfills it, Stannis does not." She faced the crowd. "I have looked into my flames every night for weeks. Asked Rhaelor to show me Azor Ahai, to confirm my visions, to prove which man will stand against the great other when darkness comes. And every time, I see the same face. Jon Snow's face, limbed in red and orange. Now a man, now a wolf, now a man again, surrounded by skulls, standing at the center of everything that matters. When I seek Stannis Baratheon in the flames," Melisandre said, and her voice was almost apologetic, "I see nothing. The Lord shows me emptiness. Absence. Stannis is a good man, a just man, a man who understands law and duty. But he is not the prince that was promised. He never was." The courtyard erupted, Stannis's men shouting in fury. Jon's supporters arguing back. The noise was deafening. Stannis himself stood like a statue. His face showed nothing. But those who knew him saw the signs, the clenched jaw, the white knuckles, the absolute rigidity of the man holding himself together through sheer force of will. Finally, he spoke. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "You dare!" Melisandre turned to face him. "Your grace, You dare," Stannis repeated, louder now. "For years you told me I was chosen, told me the Lord of Light had selected me to save the realm. You burned men alive in my name. You birthed shadow creatures to kill my enemies. You promised me victory, glory, the Iron Throne. And now you stand here and tell me it was all a lie? That you were wrong? That I'm nothing?" "Not nothing," Melisandre said. "You are a king, a capable commander, a just ruler, but you are not Azor Ahai. That burden falls to another." "Burden?" Stannis laughed. It was a terrible sound. "You call it a burden now? When it belonged to me, it was destiny, prophecy, divine mandate. But now that you've decided to give it to a boy barely old enough to shave, suddenly it's a burden? Suddenly it's something to be endured rather than embraced?" "The prophecy is not a gift," Melisandre said. "It is a duty, a terrible duty that will cost everything. Jon Snow understands that. He accepted the crown not because he wanted it, but because the realm needs him. That is the mark of the true prince, accepting power as obligation, not prize." "I accepted power as obligation," Stannis said. His voice was cold. "I held Storm's End for a year, eating rats and boot leather, while Robert played at being king. I commanded his fleet, crushed the Greyjoy rebellion, did everything a loyal brother should do. And my reward was watching Robert give Storm's End to Renly, watching the throne go to Joffrey, watching everyone ignore my rights. And now you, even you, abandoning me for a boy who has no right, no experience, no claim except the accident of his birth." "His birth was no accident," Melisandre said. "It was prophecy fulfilled. Ice and fire united. The song made flesh. It was a bastard conceived in war," Stannis spat. "Nothing more. And you're a fool for believing otherwise." He turned to his men. "Anyone who wishes to follow this false king may do so. I won't stop you. But understand this. I am Stannis Baratheon. I don't abandon my claims because a priestess has visions. I don't surrender because prophecy says I should. The Iron Throne is mine by right, by law. by every principle of succession that has governed Westeros for 300 years. And I will claim it. With or without R'hllor's blessing, he strode from the courtyard. His men followed. Not all of them. Jon saw several knights hesitate, looking between their departing king and the crowned boy before them. But most followed. Perhaps 4,000 men marching out of River Run behind their king. Jon watched them go and felt the weight of what had just happened. Stannis Baratheon, one of the most capable commanders in Westeros, was now his enemy, not because Jon had chosen it, but because Melisandre had declared her god's favor, and Stannis couldn't accept being second choice. Robb appeared at Jon's elbow. That went badly. That went exactly as Melisandre predicted, Jon said. She told me Stannis would reject the declaration, would continue fighting for his claim regardless of what her flames showed. She just needed to say it publicly so everyone else could make informed choices. And how many of his men will defect? Robb asked. Not enough, Jon said. He'd been counting. Maybe 300 stayed. The rest followed Stannis. He's wounded, angry, but he's still a king with an army, and now he has a grievance against us. Melisandre approached. Your Grace, I apologize for the pain this has caused, but it was necessary. The realm needed to know the truth according to your visions, Jon said, which you yourself admit can be misinterpreted. What if you're wrong about me the way you were wrong about Stannis? I am not wrong, Melisandre said with certainty. The Lord shows me your face, shows me your importance, shows me that you stand at the center of what's coming. Whether you believe in R'hllor or not is irrelevant. He believes in you. I follow the old gods, Jon said firmly, not your red god, not the seven, the old gods of the north. That doesn't change because you had visions. I know, Melisandre said, and that is as it should be. The prince that was promised need not worship R'hllor. He need only fulfill his purpose, standing against the darkness, protecting the realm, being the shield that guards the living. You already do those things. The fact that you credit different gods for your strength doesn't change the reality of what you are. What am I? Jon asked. According to your prophecy? A warrior who will wield a burning sword against the darkness, Melisandre said. A king who will unite the living against the dead. A man who will sacrifice everything to save a realm that doesn't deserve him. That is what the flames show me. That is what you are. I'm just Jon Snow, Jon said. I don't want to be your prophesied hero. None of us want our destinies, Melisandre said. We simply live them, or die refusing them. You have chosen to live yours. That is all that matters. She walked away, leaving Jon standing with the crown on his head and doubts in his heart. Do you believe her? Robb asked quietly. I believe she believes, Jon said. Whether her visions are real or delusions, I can't say. But she's convinced, and her conviction has cost Stannis his faith in her. That's real enough. So what do we do about Stannis? Robb asked. We offer him Storm's End, Jon said, just as you suggested. Send a raven. Formal offer. Acknowledge his service to the realm. Promise him his ancestral seat and a position of honor in the new order. Give him a way to accept subordination without losing all dignity. And if he refuses, Robb pressed, then we have another enemy, Jon said. And we deal with him when we must. But we try peace first. We try to show him that serving me is better than fighting me. And we pray he's pragmatic enough to accept reality. They spent the afternoon drafting the letter to Stannis. Jon dictated while Robb refined the language. The final version read, Lord Stannis Baratheon, you have served the realm with honor and distinction for your entire life. You held Storm's End when others would have surrendered. You commanded Robert's fleet with skill and courage. You recognized the truth about Joffrey's parentage when others were blind. Your commitment to law and justice is renowned throughout the Seven Kingdoms. I do not ask you to abandon your principles. I do not ask you to deny your claim. I ask only that you consider the realm's needs above personal ambition. The Lannisters hold King's Landing through treachery and murder. Joffrey is a bastard born of incest who murdered his predecessor. The realm needs unity against this corruption. It needs all honorable men to set aside their disputes and focus on the true enemy. I offer you Storm's End, your ancestral seat, wrongly denied to you after Robert's rebellion. I offer you command of the assault on King's Landing when we march. I offer you a seat on my council and acknowledgement as one of the realm's great lords. I offer you honor, respect, and the opportunity to serve the realm as you have always done. What I cannot offer is the Iron Throne, not because you don't deserve it, your service speaks for itself, but because the realm needs a king who can unite multiple factions, who can bridge the divide between Targaryen loyalists and those who supported Robert's rebellion. I can be that bridge. You cannot. Please, set aside your anger at Melisandre's declaration. Set aside your wounded pride. Set aside your claim to a throne that has brought nothing but misery to those who've sat it, and serve the realm one more time. Not as king, but as the man who makes kingship possible. Jon Stark, first of his name. You're asking him to swallow his pride, Robb observed when he read the final draft. That's not something Stannis does easily. I'm giving him a way to do it without losing all dignity, Jon said. Storm's End is a significant offer. It's what he wanted all along. And acknowledging his service, treating him with respect, that matters to Stannis. He wants recognition more than power. He wants both, Robb corrected. But you're right that recognition might be enough. If he can tell himself he's serving the realm rather than surrendering to a rival, he might accept. The letter was sent by Raven that evening. Jon didn't expect a response quickly. Stannis would need time to process his rage, time to calculate his options, time to decide whether pride or pragmatism mattered more. In the meantime, Jon had other problems, starting with the alliance he needed most and feared would be hardest to achieve. Dorne, the Martells will never support you. Catelyn Stark said it flatly, standing in the council chamber with Jon, Robb, and their key advisors. She had just finished reviewing their strategy for winning Dornish support. You're asking them to rally behind the son of the man who abandoned Elia, Catelyn continued. The man whose actions led directly to her murder and the murder of her children. Oberyn Martell spent years seeking vengeance for his sister. And you think he'll support Rhaegar's son by the woman Rhaegar chose over Elia? That's not just optimistic. It's delusional. We have to try, Jon said. Without Dorne, we don't have enough forces to challenge the Lannister-Tyrell alliance. We need their 25,000 men. We need their support. Then you need to offer them something extraordinary, Catelyn said. Something that outweighs the insult of your existence. Gregor Clegane's head, Robb said. We already discussed this. The Mountain murdered Elia and her children. Oberyn wanted him dead more than anything. We offer to deliver that justice. Oberyn wanted more than just Gregor's death, the Blackfish said. He had been quiet until now, listening. He wanted a public confession. Wanted Gregor to admit that Tywin Lannister ordered the murders. Wanted the whole realm to know that the Lannisters were responsible. Just killing the Mountain isn't enough. Then we give them that too, Jon said. We capture Gregor. We make him confess publicly. We give Dorne the justice they've sought for 15 years. And how exactly do we capture the Mountain? Mage Mormont asked. He's with Tywin's army, surrounded by thousands of soldiers, protected by the best security the Lannisters can provide. You can't just walk in and arrest him. We lure him out, Jon said. We offer him something he wants more than safety, something he can't resist. Like what? Catelyn asked. Like me, Jon said. I'm a Targaryen. The Mountain built his reputation killing Targaryens. Murdering Elia and her children was his defining act. If we spread word that I'm traveling with minimal security, that I'm vulnerable, he might come for me, might try to repeat his greatest triumph. That's insane, Robb said. You're using yourself as bait to catch a man who's killed hundreds. A man who's 8 feet tall, stronger than any human has a right to be, and absolutely ruthless. If he catches you, Jon, you die. Horribly. Then we make sure he doesn't catch me, Jon said. We set a trap. I'm the bait in the center. You have forces hidden around the perimeter. When Gregor comes for me, we spring the trap, surround him, overwhelm him, take him alive if possible, kill him if necessary. Either way, we deliver his head to Dorne. It's risky, the Blackfish said. But he was considering it. Jon could see the calculation in his eyes. But it might work. Gregor is arrogant, believes himself invincible. If he thinks he has an easy target, a boy king with minimal guards, he might take the chance. We'd need perfect intelligence, Robb said. We'd need to know exactly where Gregor is, where he's going, when he'll be vulnerable enough to attempt an assassination. We'd need scouts, spies, information we don't currently have. Then we get it, Jon said. We send scouts into the Westerlands. We track Lannister movements. We find Gregor, and we watch him until we see an opportunity. however long it takes. And in the meantime, Catelyn asked, while you're hunting the mountain, what about the rest of the realm? What about the Tyrells? What about actually pressing your claim to the throne? We work on multiple fronts simultaneously, Robb said. Jon focuses on the military side, hunting Gregor, preparing for battle, training with his commanders. I handle the political side as hand negotiating with the Tyrells, managing the Northern Lords, drafting the formal charter that governs Jon's kingship. We divide the labor. Use our strengths. What are we offering the Tyrells? Edmure asked. They're currently allied with the Lannisters. They have Margaery betrothed to Joffrey. They have no reason to switch sides unless we give them something better than what they currently have. We offer them the same thing, Robb said. Margaery as queen. Just married to Jon instead of Joffrey. Jon felt his stomach drop. What? You need a queen, Robb said, someone who brings a powerful alliance. Someone who's politically savvy enough to handle southern intrigue. Margaery Tyrell fits perfectly. She's been trained for this role her entire life, and her family controls the largest army in Westeros. If we can bring the Tyrells to our side, we win. It's that simple. I don't want to marry for political alliance, Jon protested. I don't even want to be king. And you're asking me to marry some southern girl I've never met? Yes, Robb said bluntly, because that's what kings do. They marry for the realm's benefit, not for love. My father married my mother to bind the north to the riverlands. Robert married Cersei to bind the Stormlands to the Westerlands. You'll marry Margaery to bind us to the Reach. That's how this works. I follow the old gods, Jon said. The Tyrells follow the Seven. How does that even work? Do I convert? Does she? Do we just pretend our religions don't matter? You compromise, Catelyn said. You marry in both ceremonies. Before a heart tree and in a sept, you acknowledge both faiths. You show the realm that you can bridge divides instead of deepening them. That's what a good king does. He unites instead of dividing. And what about Dorne? Jon asked. We were just discussing offering me in marriage to Arianne Martell to win their support. Now you want me to marry Margaery Tyrell instead. How does that work? We offer Arianne to someone else, Robb said. Someone valuable enough to cement the alliance, but not you. Maybe one of the Tully lords, maybe a northern lord, or maybe we offer her gold and titles and vengeance without marriage. The point is, the Tyrells matter more strategically than Dorne. We need their army. So if we have to choose, we choose Margaery. Jon looked around the council chamber. Every advisor was nodding, agreeing with Robb, accepting that Jon's marriage was just another political tool to be deployed. I hate this, Jon said. I hate every part of this. I know, Robb said sympathetically, but it's necessary. And Jon, Margaery's not a bad person. She's ambitious, yes. Political, yes. But she's also smart and kind, and she'll make a good queen. You could do much worse. I could also not do this at all, Jon said. I could abdicate. Hand the crown to you. Let someone else deal with political marriages and alliance negotiations and all of this. You can't, Robb said gently. We've already crowned you. Already announced your claim. Already had Melisandre declare you the prophesied king. Backing out now would make us look weak, indecisive. It would undermine everything we're trying to build. You accepted the crown, Jon. Now you have to wear it. Marriage and all. Jon closed his eyes, thought about his vows to the Night's Watch. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. He'd broken all of them now, or was about to. The boy who'd joined the Watch to escape questions of legitimacy was about to marry the daughter of one of the great houses for political alliance. Father, Jon thought, if you can hear me, I hope you understand. I hope you know I'm doing this because I have to, not because I want to. When do we approach the Tyrells? Jon asked, opening his eyes. After we deliver Gregor's head to Dorne, Robb said. We secure one alliance before attempting the other. Show the Tyrells we can deliver on promises. Prove we're capable of achieving difficult objectives. Then we make our offer and pray they accept. And if they don't? Jon asked. Then we fight without them, Robb said. And hope it's enough. The council continued for another hour. Plans were refined. Strategies were debated. Scouts were assigned to track Gregor Clegane's movements. Letters were drafted to Dornish lords. Not to Prince Doran directly, not yet, but to lesser lords who might be willing to listen. Feelers testing the waters of alliance. When it finally ended and advisors dispersed, Jon found himself alone with Robb in the chamber. "I'm sorry," Robb said, "for asking you to marry Marjorie, for making this harder than it already is." "You're not making it harder," Jon said. "Reality is making it harder. You're just being honest about what reality requires. I appreciate that, even if I hate the answer." "For what it's worth," Robb said, "I think you and Marjorie might actually like each other. She's clever, quick-witted, she values intelligence over brute strength. And she understands duty, understands sacrifice. You have more in common than you think." "Maybe," Jon said. "Or maybe we'll hate each other and spend 20 years in a miserable political marriage like Robert and Cersei. That worked out well for everyone." "You're not Robert," Robb said firmly. "And Marjorie's not Cersei. You'll both approach this marriage knowing what it is, a political alliance. You won't have unrealistic expectations. Won't resent each other for not being something you never could be. That's healthier than marrying for love and watching it die." "You're a cynic," Jon observed. "I'm a realist," Robb corrected. "And right now the realm needs realism more than romanticism. We need alliances that work, not love stories that don't." Jon couldn't argue. Everything Robb said was true, practical, necessary. But it still felt like losing something essential, like sacrificing the last piece of himself that might have been his own. "I should find Ghost," Jon said. "Clear my head. Think about all this." "Go," Robb said. "We have a few days before the scouts return with information on Gregor. Use them to prepare yourself, physically and mentally. Because when we move against the mountain, it's going to be dangerous, possibly fatal. And I need you ready." Jon left the council chamber and searched for Ghost. Found the direwolf in Riverrun's Godswood, sitting silently before the heart tree. Jon sat beside him, placed his hand on Ghost's white fur. "I'm getting married," Jon said to the wolf, "to a girl I've never met, for politics. And I'm going to hunt the mountain, use myself as bait to catch a killer. And somehow, I'm supposed to be king through all of this. King of people who don't want me. King of a realm that doesn't know me. King of everything I never wanted to be." Ghost pressed closer. The direwolf's silence was comforting. No words. No advice. Just presence. Constant and unwavering. Jon slipped into Ghost's mind, let himself experience the world through the wolf's senses, smelled the earth and trees and water, felt the cold wind, heard the small sounds of birds and insects. Everything was simpler through Ghost's eyes. No politics. No alliances. No crowns. Just hunt and eat and survive. "That's what I am," Jon thought while wearing Ghost's skin. "Just a predator, trying to survive in a world of bigger predators. The crown doesn't change that. I'm still just Jon Snow. Just a bastard trying not to get killed." He pulled back from Ghost's mind. The transition was always disorienting, returning to human senses after experiencing the wolf's sharper, simpler world. "Come on," Jon said to Ghost. "Let's go train. If I'm going to hunt the mountain, I need to be ready." They left the Godswood and headed for the training yard. Jon would spend the next 3 days practicing, drilling, preparing his body for the fight to come. Because Gregor Clegane was the most dangerous fighter in Westeros. 8 feet tall, stronger than any man had a right to be. Responsible for hundreds of deaths, including the most brutal murders in recent history. And Jon was going to use himself as bait to catch him. It was possibly the stupidest plan he'd ever agreed to, but it was necessary. Because without Dorne, they couldn't win. And without Gregor's head, Dorne wouldn't listen. So Jon would train, would prepare, would sharpen his skills with Longclaw until he was as ready as he could be. And then he would hunt a monster. And pray he survived the encounter. 3 days later, the scouts returned with intelligence. Gregor Clegane was raiding in the northern Riverlands with a force of 300 men. Burning villages, killing small folk, doing what the mountain did best, terrorizing the innocent and breaking the spirit of resistance. "He's moving predictably," the lead scout reported to Jon and Robb. "Burns a village, moves to the next, burns it, stays in an area for 2 or 3 days, then moves on. He's thorough, systematic, and he doesn't worry about being caught because Tywin's main army is close enough to reinforce if he gets in trouble." "Where's Tywin's main force?" Robb asked. "Harrenhal," the scout said. 35,000 men, maybe a day's march from where Gregor's operating. Close enough to help if needed, far enough that Gregor operates independently most of the time. So we have a narrow window, Jon said. Catch Gregor when he's separated from the main army, but before he can call for reinforcements. How long would it take for reinforcements to arrive if Gregor sent for help? 6 to 8 hours, the scout estimated. Maybe faster if they force march. But Gregor would need to survive long enough to send a message. If you hit him hard and fast, cut off his communication, you might have several hours before Tywin even knows something's wrong. That's our window, Robb said. 6 hours to capture or kill Gregor and withdraw before Tywin's forces arrive. Jon, are you sure about this? About using yourself as bait? No, Jon admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. What's the plan? They spent hours refining the strategy. Jon would travel with a small escort, maybe 50 men, enough to look like a proper Kingsguard but small enough to seem vulnerable. They would camp in an area Gregor was known to operate, make themselves visible, obvious, an easy target. Meanwhile, Robb would position 2,000 men in hidden positions around the camp, in forests, behind ridges, anywhere the terrain allowed concealment. When Gregor attacked Jon's camp, the hidden forces would surround him, cut off escape routes, overwhelm his 300 men with superior numbers. Gregor's not stupid, the Blackfish warned. He's survived this long because he's cautious when he needs to be. If he sees anything suspicious, too few guards, terrain that's too convenient for ambush, any sign this is a trap, he'll withdraw. You need to make this look authentic. So I actually put myself in danger, Jon said. Actually give Gregor a genuine chance to kill me. Otherwise he'll see through the deception. Yes, the Blackfish said. You need to commit to the bait role completely. Sleep in that camp. Eat in that camp. Act like a young king who doesn't understand how dangerous the world is. Give Gregor enough confidence that he'll take the chance. I don't like this, Robb said for the 10th time. Too many ways it goes wrong. Gregor kills you before we can spring the trap. His men break through our lines and he escapes. Tywin's reinforcements arrive faster than expected. This plan has more holes than a fishing net. So we prepare for every contingency we can think of, Jon said. We position forces to cut off multiple escape routes. We have fast riders ready to intercept any messengers Gregor sends. We plan for Tywin's early arrival and have withdrawal routes prepared. We do everything possible to tilt the odds in our favor. And we pray, Robb said. Pray to the old gods that this works. Because if it doesn't, we lose you. And if we lose you, this whole enterprise collapses. Then we make sure it works, Jon said with more confidence than he felt. They finalized the plan over the next day, chose the location, a clearing near the burned village of Sharer, where Gregor had been operating recently. Selected the 50 men who would serve as Jon's escort, all capable fighters who understood they were genuine bait, not just playing a role. Positioned the 2,000 hidden soldiers in forests and ravines surrounding the clearing. On the evening of the second day, Jon rode out with his escort. Ghost padded beside him, the white direwolf drawing stares from every soldier they passed. The men knew this was dangerous, knew their young king was putting himself at genuine risk. Some approved, some thought he was mad. All respected the courage it took. They reached the clearing as the sun set, made camp with deliberate obviousness, large fires, minimal sentries, an overall sense of careless security. Everything designed to make Gregor think they were easy prey. Jon sat by the fire that night and tried not to think about what was coming. Tried not to imagine an 8-foot mountain of muscle and armor crashing into the camp with murder in his eyes. Tried not to think about Elia Martell and her children, crushed and broken by this monster. You should sleep, Daisy Mormont said. She was one of the 50, a fierce warrior with her mother's practical demeanor. Tomorrow might be the day. You need rest. I can't sleep, Jon admitted. Keep thinking about everything that could go wrong. Then think about what could go right, Daisy suggested. We catch the mountain. Deliver him to Dorne. Win the alliance we need. This works, and we're one step closer to actually winning this war. And if it doesn't work? Jon asked. Then we die fighting a monster, Daisy said with a shrug. There are worse ways to go. At least we'll die doing something worthwhile. Trying to deliver justice for Elia and her children. That matters. Jon wanted to argue. Wanted to say that dying young wasn't noble. It was just a waste. But he also understood what Daisy meant. They were fighting for something real. Something important. And if they died pursuing that goal, at least their deaths would mean something. Ghost pressed against Jon's leg. The dire wolf's red eyes watched the darkness beyond the firelight. Waiting, ready. Tomorrow, Jon whispered to Ghost. Tomorrow, we find out if we're clever or just suicidal. Ghost said nothing, but his presence was comforting. Constant, real. Jon eventually slept, dreamed of fire and blood, of a giant in armor crushing everything in his path, of himself, small and weak, trying to stand against overwhelming force. He woke before dawn with sweat on his brow and fear in his heart, but also determination, because this was necessary, and he'd learned from Ned Stark that you did what was necessary even when it terrified you. That was what honor demanded, what duty required, what being a Stark meant. So Jon would face the mountain, would use himself as bait, would risk everything for an alliance they desperately needed, and he would survive, or he wouldn't. But either way, he would face it with courage, because that was all he had left. Courage and duty, and the hope that it would be enough. What if Robb Stark crowned Jon Snow king? Part 3 of 3. The Mountain and the Alliance Gregor Clegane arrived on the third day. Jon was practicing sword forms when the sentries raised the alarm. He looked up to see dust rising on the horizon, riders approaching from the west. Many riders, moving fast. How many? Jon called to the nearest sentry. 300, maybe more, the man shouted back. And there's something at the center. Something massive. The mountain. It had to be. Jon felt his heart hammering, but forced himself to remain calm. This was the plan. This was what they'd prepared for. Sound the alarm, Jon ordered. Make it look panicked. Like we're surprised and afraid. Everyone to positions, but make it look disorganized. We need to sell this. His 50 men scrambled into defensive positions around the camp. They made it look chaotic. Men shouting conflicting orders, some grabbing weapons while others ran for horses. The perfect image of a young king's guard, caught off guard and unprepared. Jon stood in the center of the camp with Longclaw in hand and Ghost beside him. The dire wolf's hackles were raised, teeth bared in a silent snarl. Ghost knew danger was coming. The riders came closer. Jon could see them clearly now, rough men in battered armor, carrying torches and weapons. Gregor's raiders, men who burned villages and killed innocents for their lord's amusement, and at their center rode the mountain himself. Gregor Clegane was everything the stories claimed. 8 feet tall, broad as an ox, wearing armor that would crush a normal man under its weight. His horse was a massive destrier, the only animal in Westeros strong enough to carry him. His sword was a great sword that most men would need both hands to lift. Gregor wielded it one-handed like a toy. His helm covered his face, but Jon could see his eyes through the visor. Cold eyes. Dead eyes. The eyes of a man who had killed so many people that murder had become routine. The raiders stopped 50 yards from Jon's camp, formed a rough line. Gregor sat on his horse at the center, studying the camp's defenses with a professional's eye. "You're Jon Snow," Gregor called. His voice was deep, flat, emotionless. "The Targaryen bastard who thinks he's a king." "I'm Jon Stark," Jon called back. "First of his name, and you're Gregor Clegane, the mountain that rides, murderer of Elia Martell and her children. I'm placing you under arrest for crimes against the realm." Gregor laughed. It was a terrible sound. "You in what army, boy? I count 50 men with you. I have 300. The math is simple." "The math is what I want it to be," Jon said. He was stalling now, giving Robb time to position the hidden forces. Every second mattered. "You murdered a princess and her children, raped Elia before killing her, smashed her son's head against a wall, stabbed her daughter 100 times. Those crimes demand justice." "Justice?" Gregor's voice showed amusement. "I followed orders. Lord Tywin commanded that the Targaryen children be dealt with. I dealt with them. That's not murder. That's war." "Murdering children is not war," Jon said. "It's butchery, and you're going to answer for it." "I'll answer with steel," Gregor said. He drew his greatsword. The blade was massive, 6 feet long, sharp on both edges. "I killed Rhaegar's children. Now I'll kill Rhaegar's other bastard." Full set. He spurred his horse forward. His raiders followed with a roar, 300 men charging Jon's position with murder in their eyes. Jon raised Longclaw. "Now!" he shouted. From the forests on 3 sides, Robb's hidden forces exploded into view. 2,000 men, fresh and ready, crashing into Gregor's raiders from multiple directions simultaneously. The trap sprung perfectly. Gregor's charge faltered as his men realized they were surrounded. Raiders tried to wheel their horses, to form defensive positions, but it was too late. Robb's forces hit them like a hammer. The clearing became a battlefield. Men screaming, horses dying, steel clashing against steel, blood soaking the ground. Jon's 50 defenders met Gregor's vanguard head-on while the main force closed the trap. Gregor himself smashed through Jon's line like a battering ram. His greatsword swept in wide arcs, killing men with each stroke. He was unstoppable. Too big, too strong, too skilled. Jon watched him cut down 3 men in as many seconds, and understood why people feared the mountain. "Ghost," Jon shouted. "Take him!" The white direwolf launched at Gregor, covered 20 feet in a single leap, massive jaws aimed for the mountain's throat. Gregor caught Ghost in midair with one armored hand, threw the direwolf aside like a toy. Ghost hit the ground hard, rolled, came up snarling. Jon felt fury burn through him. No one hurt Ghost. No one. He charged, long claw high, aimed for the gap between Gregor's breastplate and pauldron. The Valyrian steel blade was lighter than regular steel, faster, sharper. If Jon could hit the weak point, Gregor's greatsword came around in a horizontal arc. Jon barely got Longclaw up in time to block. The impact was tremendous, sent him staggering backward. His burned hand screamed in protest but held. "You're quick," Gregor observed. "For a boy, but not quick enough." He advanced. Each step shook the ground. His greatsword swept in wide, powerful arcs that Jon had to desperately avoid. There was no blocking those strikes. They'd shatter Longclaw despite the Valyrian steel. Jon had to dodge, to stay mobile, to use his speed advantage. Ghost attacked from the side, bit at Gregor's leg. The direwolf's teeth couldn't penetrate the armor, but the distraction mattered. Gregor swung at Ghost. Jon seized the opening, thrust Longclaw at Gregor's exposed armpit. The Valyrian steel punched through the mail there, bit into flesh. "Drew blood," Gregor roared, backhanded Jon with his offhand. The armored fist caught Jon's shoulder, sent him flying. Jon hit the ground hard, his shoulder screaming, his vision swimming. He saw Gregor advancing, saw the greatsword raised for a killing blow, saw death coming. Then Robb was there, Grey Wind at his side. The grey direwolf was larger than Ghost, more savage. Grey Wind went for Gregor's horse. Massive jaws closed on the destrier's throat. The horse screamed, collapsed, threw Gregor from the saddle. The mountain hit the ground with a crash of metal on earth. Robb pressed the attack. His sword couldn't penetrate Gregor's armor, but he kept the mountain off balance, prevented him from rising. Bought time. More of Robb's men swarmed Gregor. 10 men, 20, all stabbing at weak points, at joints, at gaps in the armor. Gregor fought like a demon, killed 3 men with his bare hands, crushed another's skull with his fist. But the numbers were overwhelming. "Yield," Robb shouted. "Yield and live. Fight and die." Gregor grabbed a fallen spear, thrust it through a soldier's chest, used the body as a shield while he struggled to stand. "I don't yield. Not to children. Not to anyone." An arrow took him in the back of the knee, the only part of his leg armor that was flexible. Gregor stumbled. More arrows followed, targeting joints, targeting gaps, targeting everything that wasn't protected by solid plate. The mountain fell to one knee. Blood seeped from a dozen wounds. He was still dangerous. Grabbed a soldier who got too close and broke his neck with a twist. But he was slowing, weakening. Jon struggled to his feet. His shoulder throbbed, but nothing was broken. He approached Gregor carefully, Longclaw ready. "You murdered Elia Martell," Jon said. His voice was cold. "You murdered her children, Aegon and Rhaenys, innocent children, and you're going to confess. Publicly. Tell everyone that Tywin Lannister ordered their deaths." "Go to hell," Gregor spat blood. "I don't confess to bastards." "You will," Jon said. "Eventually, we'll make you." "You can't make me do anything," Gregor said. Then he lunged. One final attack. His hand closed on a fallen knife. He drove it at Jon's chest. Ghost was there. The white direwolf's jaws closed on Gregor's wrist. Bit down. Crushed bone. The knife fell. "Enough," Robb said. He pressed his sword against Gregor's throat. "You're captured. You're going to Dorne to face justice. And if you're very lucky, They'll make your death quick. But I doubt it. I doubt it very much. Gregor tried to rise. Failed. His strength was finally spent. Blood loss. Exhaustion. The weight of his own armor dragging him down. He fell forward unconscious. Bind him, Robb ordered. Chain him. We're taking him to Sunspear. The battle ended within the hour. Gregor's 300 raiders were destroyed. 200 dead, 100 captured. Robb's forces lost 70 men. A costly victory, but a victory nonetheless. Jon sat with Ghost, checking the direwolf for injuries. Ghost had bruises where Gregor had thrown him, but nothing serious. The white wolf was tough. Had survived worse at the wall. You're bleeding, Daisy Mormont said. She approached with bandages. Let me see that shoulder. Jon let her examine the injury. Gregor's backhand had torn muscle, but missed the bone. It would hurt for weeks, but would heal. He'd been lucky. If that armored fist had hit his head instead of his shoulder, Jon would be dead. The mountain's unconscious, Robb reported, joining them. We've got him chained with enough iron to hold a bull. But Jon, we need to move fast. Tywin will hear about this within hours. If we're still here when his army arrives, we're dead. All of us. How long to reach Dornish territory? Jon asked. 3 days if we ride hard, Robb said. 2 if we abandon the wounded and prisoners. But that's assuming Tywin doesn't catch us first. His cavalry could reach us in a day if they force march. Then we send the mountain ahead with a small escort, Jon said. Fast riders. They take Gregor to Dorne immediately. The rest of us follow at our own pace. If Tywin catches the main force, at least Dorne still gets what we promised. You're risking the main force to save one prisoner? Roose Bolton asked. He had arrived with the reinforcements. That's poor strategy. That's the strategy that gets us Dornish alliance, Jon said. The mountain matters more than any of us. If we die but Gregor reaches Dorne, we've succeeded. If we live but Gregor dies or escapes, we've failed. The mission is delivering the mountain. Everything else is secondary. Robb nodded. I'll take him. 50 riders, the fastest horses we have. We'll make for Sunspear directly. The rest of you withdraw east toward the Riverlands. Split Tywin's attention if he pursues. I should go with you, Jon said. I'm the king. The Martells need to see me, need to understand that this isn't just strategy, it's personal. I'm Rhaegar's son delivering his sins for judgment. It's too dangerous, Robb protested. If Tywin catches you, he won't, Jon said. We'll be too fast. And Robb, this matters. The symbolism matters. Jon Snow, Jon Stark, Jon Targaryen, bringing Gregor Clegane to answer for murdering his half-siblings. That story will resonate. Will show Dorne that I understand their pain, that I'm not defending my father's actions, that I want justice as much as they do. Robb was silent for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but we take 100 riders, not 50. And Ghost comes with us. And if we see any sign of Lannister pursuit, we run. No heroics. No last stands. We get Gregor to Dorne, and we get you to safety. Understood? Jon agreed. They organized quickly. 100 of the best riders, the fastest horses, minimal supplies, just enough food and water to reach Dorne. And Gregor Clegane, chained and unconscious, strapped to a horse like cargo. They rode south as the sun set, hard riding, pushing the horses to their limits. Every hour mattered. Every mile brought them closer to Dorne and further from Tywin's vengeance. Jon rode with Ghost running alongside. The direwolf's stamina was incredible. He could run for hours without tiring, matching the horse's pace effortlessly. Jon took comfort in his presence, in the familiar sight of white fur and red eyes. They rode through the night, changed horses at a friendly holdfast, rode through the next day. The landscape changed gradually, the green riverlands giving way to the drier, rockier terrain of the Dornish marches. On the evening of the second day, they saw Dornish patrol, 20 riders in the orange and red of House Martell. They intercepted Jon's column with spears ready. Their captain, a weathered man with suspicious eyes, demanded identification. I am Jon Stark, Jon said. He kept his hands visible, non-threatening, first of his name, king of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men. I bring Gregor Clegane to face Dornish justice for his crimes against Princess Elia and her children. The captain's eyes widened. He looked at the massive figure chained and draped across a horse, recognized the size, the armor, the reputation. The mountain that rides, the captain breathed. You captured him? And we're delivering him to Prince Doran. Where is Sunspear? 2 days south, the captain said. But I'll send riders ahead. Let the prince know you're coming. This is extraordinary. Dorne has waited 15 years for this justice, and now justice has arrived, Jon said. Will you escort us? Make sure we reach Sunspear safely? With honor, the captain said. He detailed half his men to ride ahead with news. The other half fell in around Jon's column as protection and honor guard. They rode the final 2 days through increasingly Dornish terrain. The land was drier here, rockier, with different plants and different architecture. The people looked different too. Darker skin, different clothing, different manner. Sunspear rose from the coast like a golden jewel. The seat of House Martell was beautiful. Elegant towers, graceful walls, gardens that defied the harsh climate. The Dornish sun symbol flew from every tower. They were met at the gates by a formal delegation. At its head stood a man in a wheeled chair, Prince Doran Martell, Lord of Sunspear, Prince of Dorne. His face was lined with pain from the gout that had crippled him, but his eyes were sharp, calculating, missing nothing. Beside him stood a younger man with the Martell features but something darker in his eyes. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, the man who had spent 15 years seeking vengeance for his sister. Your Grace, Doran said. His voice was measured. Careful, you bring interesting cargo to our gates. I bring justice, Jon said. He dismounted. Ghost remained at his side, the white direwolf drawing stares from every Dornishman present. Gregor Clegane, the mountain that rides, murderer of your sister and her children, I deliver him to Dornish justice as proof of my commitment to making amends for my father's sins. Oberyn approached the horse carrying Gregor, looked at the massive chained figure. His hand moved to his spear. Is he alive? Oberyn asked. Barely, Robb said. We brought him that way deliberately, so you could deliver justice yourselves, however you see fit. I want him to confess, Oberyn said. His voice was tight with suppressed rage. Want him to admit publicly that Tywin Lannister ordered Elia's murder? Want everyone in the realm to know the Lannisters are responsible? He'll confess, Jon said. We'll make him confess. Whatever methods you need to use, you have my approval. Just get the truth from him before he dies. Doran studied Jon carefully. You're Rhaegar's son, the product of the liaison that led to my sister's abandonment. Why would you help us? Why would you deliver justice for crimes your father's actions precipitated? Because what happened to Elia was wrong, Jon said. My father's choice to marry my mother, if he did marry her, if it was legal, doesn't justify what the Lannisters did. Doesn't excuse the murder of innocent children. I'm Rhaegar's son, yes, but I'm also Lyanna Stark's son. And I was raised by Ned Stark to understand justice. To know that some crimes demand answers regardless of politics or family loyalty. Pretty words, Oberyn said. But words are wind. What do you actually want from Dorne? Why bring us this gift if not to buy our support? I want your alliance, Jon admitted. I'm not going to lie about that. I need Dornish spears if I'm going to take the Iron Throne from the Lannisters. But I'm not asking you to support me because I delivered Gregor. I'm asking you to support me because we have common enemies and common interests. The Lannisters murdered your sister. They murdered my father at the Trident. They rule through treachery and fear. We both want them destroyed. So let's destroy them together. Doran was silent for a long moment. Bring him inside. Put him in the dungeons. We'll extract his confession. And then, his eyes were cold, then Oberyn will have what he sought for 15 years. The opportunity to make Gregor Clegane scream. Good, Oberyn said. His voice promised terrible things. I've been dreaming of this for so long. I know exactly how I'll make him suffer. Exactly how I'll make him pay for every scream my sister made. Every tear my niece and nephew shed. He'll beg for death long before I grant it. Gregor was dragged from the horse, carried into Sunspear's dungeons by a dozen men struggling under his weight. Jon watched him disappear and felt no sympathy. The mountain had murdered children, had raped and killed Elia Martell. Whatever Oberyn did to him was justice. You'll stay as our guest while we conduct the interrogation, Doran said to Jon. It will take days, perhaps weeks. Gregor is strong, stubborn. Breaking him will require time and expertise. But break him we will, and when we have his confession, when we have proof of Tywin's guilt, then we'll discuss alliance terms. I accept your hospitality, Jon said, and I look forward to hearing Gregor's confession, to knowing that justice has been served for your sister and her children. They were shown to guest chambers in Sunspear, elegant rooms with Dornish decor. Jon stood on a balcony overlooking the sea and tried to process everything that had happened. He'd hunted the mountain, delivered him to Dorne, and now he waited while Oberyn Martell extracted vengeance for 15-year-old crimes. You did well, Robb said, joining him on the balcony. Doran's impressed. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't expecting you to actually deliver Gregor. Wasn't expecting you to understand the symbolism. You surprised him. Will it be enough? Jon asked. Will Dorne actually support us? I think so, Robb said. But they'll want terms. Marriage alliance, probably. Arianne Martell to someone significant. Maybe you, though that complicates things with the Tyrells. Maybe one of the Tully Lords. Maybe me. You? Jon looked at him. Robb, you're king in the north. Hand of the king. You can't marry for a Dornish alliance when we might need you to marry for something else. I'm not actually king in the north anymore, Robb pointed out. I'm your hand. My marriage is a tool just like anything else. If wedding Arianne Martell secures Dornish support, then that's what I do. Father married mother to bind the north to the Riverlands. I'll do the same to bind us to Dorne. And you're fine with that? Jon asked. Marrying for politics. No, Robb admitted. But I'm realistic about it. Kings and lords don't marry for love. We marry for alliances. That's how this world works. And if my marriage brings 25,000 Dornish spears to our cause, then it's worth it. Jon wanted to argue, wanted to say they should have more choice, more freedom. But he knew Robb was right. This was what nobility meant. Sacrificing personal desires for political necessity. I'm supposed to marry Marjorie Tyrell, Jon said, for the Reach Alliance. That's the plan, right? If we can convince the Tyrells to switch sides, Robb said, which becomes more likely once we have Dorne committed. The Tyrells are pragmatic. If they see us building a real coalition, North Riverlands, Dorne, they'll start questioning their Lannister alliance, especially once Gregor confesses and implicates Tywin. That confession will be devastating to Lannister legitimacy. So we wait, Jon said. Wait for Oberyn to break the mountain. Wait for the confession. Then we negotiate formal terms with Dorne. Then we approach the Tyrells. And somehow, through all of this, we build an army capable of taking King's Landing. One step at a time, Robb said. You've done the hardest part already. Delivered Gregor. Everything else follows from that. They stood on the balcony and watched the sun set over the Dornish sea. The water was beautiful, deep blue, sparkling in the fading light. So different from the cold northern seas Jon had grown up knowing. I'm so far from home, Jon thought. So far from Winterfell, from the Wall, from everything I knew. And I'm negotiating alliances with princes who have every reason to hate me, preparing to marry a girl I've never met, playing the Game of Thrones when all I wanted was to serve at the Wall and defend the realm from the darkness. But this was his life now. This was what accepting the crown meant, politics and alliances and strategic marriages, all in service of the larger goal, removing the Lannisters, preparing for the others, saving the realm from itself. I hope this is worth it, Jon said quietly. It will be, Robb promised. We're building something here. Something that can actually win. North, Riverlands, Dorne. Maybe the Reach if we play it right. That's a coalition capable of challenging the Lannisters and winning. You did that, Jon. You made this possible. Jon didn't feel like he'd made anything possible. He felt like a piece being moved on a board by people smarter than him. But he trusted Robb, trusted his judgment, trusted that his brother knew what he was doing. Father, Jon thought, looking at the setting sun, I hope you're proud. I hope you'd approve of what we're doing, because I'm making choices I never thought I'd make, becoming someone I never thought I'd be, and I need to believe it's for the right reasons. The sun disappeared below the horizon. Darkness fell, and Jon went inside to rest. Tomorrow, Oberyn would begin his interrogation, begin extracting the truth from Gregor Clegane, and Jon would witness it. Would hear the Mountain confess to his crimes, would see justice served after 15 years. It wouldn't bring Elia back, wouldn't resurrect her children, but it would be something, some small measure of balance in a world that seemed fundamentally unjust. And maybe, just maybe, it would be the first step toward building something better. Gregor Clegane's confession took 3 days. Oberyn Martell was an artist with poison and pain. He didn't just torture the mountain. He conducted a symphony of suffering, each dose of venom carefully calibrated, each cut precisely placed, each moment of agony building on the last. Jon watched from a gallery overlooking the interrogation chamber. Doran had insisted he be present. "You need to understand what your father's choices cost," Doran said. "Need to see the consequences of abandoning one wife for another." The mountain was chained spread eagle to a stone table. His armor was gone, revealing the massive body beneath. Scars covered him, evidence of a lifetime of violence. Oberyn worked methodically, asking questions while applying his craft. "Who ordered you to kill Princess Elia?" Oberyn asked. His voice was almost gentle. A physician's voice. He held a syringe of something dark and viscous. "Go to hell," Gregor rasped. Oberyn injected the substance into Gregor's arm. The mountain convulsed, screamed. The sound echoed through the chamber, a sound of pure agony. "That's widow's blood," Oberyn explained conversationally, "mixed with basilisk venom and a few other ingredients. It creates extraordinary pain, burns through your nerves like fire. But it won't kill you, won't even cause permanent damage. Just pain. Pure, exquisite pain." He waited for the convulsions to stop. "Who ordered you to kill Princess Elia?" "Tywin," Gregor gasped. "Lord Tywin Lannister? And why did Lord Tywin order this?" "To prove loyalty. To Robert. To show the new king that House Lannister was committed to his rule. Targaryen children were loose ends. Threats. He wanted them eliminated." "Did you rape Elia before killing her?" Oberyn's voice was still gentle, almost curious. "Yes." "Did you kill her children first? Or did you make her watch?" "Made her watch." Gregor's voice was breaking. "Killed the boy first, smashed his head against the wall, then the girl. Stabbed her, many times. Then Elia." "How many times did you stab Rhaenys?" "I don't. 50 times. Maybe. I lost count." Jon felt sick. The clinical description of murdering children was worse than rage. Gregor recounted it like describing a meal or a journey. No emotion. No remorse. Just facts. "Did Tywin specifically order you to rape Elia?" Oberyn asked. "No. He said eliminate them. How I did it was my choice. I chose that because—" Gregor hesitated. "Because—" Oberyn prompted. He held up another syringe. "Because it felt good," Gregor admitted. "Because I could. Because no one could stop me." Jon turned away from the gallery. Couldn't watch anymore. Couldn't listen to this monster describe murdering innocents with clinical detachment. Robb found him outside, leaning against a wall. "You all right?" "No," Jon said. "That thing down there, he's not human. He's a monster. And my father's choice to leave Elia for my mother led directly to her and her children being delivered to that monster. How am I supposed to live with that?" "Your father didn't kill them," Robb said firmly. "Gregor did. Tywin ordered it. Rhaegar made choices that created vulnerabilities, but he didn't murder anyone. Don't take responsibility for crimes you didn't commit. But I benefit from them," Jon said. "I exist because Rhaegar chose my mother over Elia. I'm pressing a claim that requires acknowledging my legitimacy, which implicitly requires accepting that my father's marriage to my mother was valid, which means Elia was either abandoned or polygamously married. Either way, I'm asking people to accept that my mother mattered more than Elia. And that's—" He couldn't finish. "That's politics," Robb said. "That's the ugly reality of succession and legitimacy. But Jon, you're not responsible for your father's choices. You're only responsible for your own. And your choice was to capture the mountain and deliver him to Dorne for justice. That matters. That's you trying to make amends for sins you didn't commit." Jon wanted to believe him, wanted to think that delivering Gregor was enough. But listening to the mountain's confession had driven home exactly what Rhaegar's choice had cost. The interrogation continued for 3 days. Each session extracted more details, more confessions, more evidence of Tywin's guilt. By the end, Oberyn had everything: a complete accounting of the murders, Tywin's role in ordering them, the political calculations that led to the decision. And then Oberyn killed Gregor, slowly, using a poison that took hours to work, causing escalating agony. The mountain died screaming for mercy that never came. Jon didn't watch the execution. Couldn't stomach seeing even a monster die that way. But he heard the screams. Everyone in Sunspear heard them. The sound echoed through the palace for hours. When it was finally over, when Gregor Clegane was dead, Oberyn emerged from the dungeons covered in blood and wearing a satisfied expression. Justice, Oberyn said simply. For Elia, for Rhaenys, for Aegon. 15 years late, but justice nonetheless. That evening, Doran called a formal council. Jon and Robb attended. Oberyn was there, still wearing his blood-stained clothing like a badge of honor. Several Dornish lords filled the chamber. Ironwood, Fowler, Dane, others Jon didn't recognize. You delivered what you promised, Doran said to Jon. Gregor Clegane is dead. His confession is recorded. Tywin Lannister's guilt is proven. You have fulfilled your side of the bargain. Now we discuss what Dorne requires to support your claim. Name your terms, Jon said. First, formal acknowledgement that Elia Martell was wronged, Doran said. That Rhaegar's choice to leave her, for whatever reason, whether he annulled the marriage or practiced polygamy, was unjust. That Elia and her children deserved better. Agreed, Jon said. I'll issue a formal declaration. Elia was wronged. My father's choices led to her vulnerability. She and her children deserved protection they didn't receive. I acknowledge that and apologize on behalf of House Targaryen for the suffering inflicted on House Martell. Second, a marriage alliance, Doran said. Arianne Martell to a significant lord in your coalition. She is my heir. Whoever marries her becomes Prince Consort of Dorne. This is not a minor position. I offer myself, Robb said. Everyone turned to look at him. I'm Jon's hand, king in the north by acclamation, though I've subordinated that title to serve Jon's kingship. Marrying me to Arianne binds Dorne to the north directly, makes our alliance permanent. You're already betrothed? Oberyn asked. No, Robb said. I'm free to marry, and I'm willing to bind myself to Dorne if that's what secures this alliance. Doran studied Robb carefully. You understand what you're offering? Prince Consort of Dorne is not a ceremonial position. You would need to spend time here. Learn our ways. Father Dornish children who would inherit both Northern and Dornish claims. I understand, Robb said, and I accept. The North and Dorne have never been allies. This marriage changes that. Creates a permanent bond between two regions that have been too long separated. Third term, Doran continued. Dornish autonomy similar to what the North negotiated. We maintain our own laws, our own customs, our titles. We're not becoming just another southern province that takes orders from King's Landing. Agreed, Jon said. The same terms the North has. You maintain your own laws where they don't conflict with the realm's needs. You keep the title of prince. You collect your own taxes and send an agreed amount to the crown. You're partners, not subjects. Fourth priority in dealing with the Lannisters, Doran said. His voice was harder now. When we march on King's Landing, when we take the city, Dornish forces get first opportunity to capture Tywin. He answers for Elia's murder before a Dornish court. And when he's convicted, as he will be, Oberyn delivers justice. Agreed, Jon said. Tywin Lannister will answer for his crimes before Dorne. You'll have justice for what he ordered. Then, we have an accord. Doran supports your claim. We bring 25,000 spears to your cause. We march when you're ready. And we destroy the Lannisters together. The North remembers, Robb said. And now Dorne and the North remember together. Our enemies should fear what we're building. Oberyn smiled. It was a dangerous expression. Oh, they will. When word spreads that the North and Dorne are allied, that Jon Stark has captured the mountain and delivered him to justice, that Gregor confessed to Tywin's crimes before dying, the Lannisters will panic. Their support will start crumbling, and we'll be there to push them over the edge. The formal documents were drafted over the next 2 days. Treaties, marriage contracts, agreements on autonomy and taxes, and military coordination. Everything signed and sealed. Everything official. Jon stood in Sunspear's great hall and watched Robb sign his marriage contract to Arianne Martell. The girl was beautiful. Dark hair, olive skin, the confident bearing of someone raised to rule. She studied Robb with interest and what might have been approval. You're sacrificing for me, Jon said to Robb afterward. Marrying for alliance, giving up any chance at love, maybe, Robb said. Or maybe I'll grow to love her. She seems smart, capable, ambitious. Those are qualities I respect. We might actually be happy together. Or at least content. That's more than many arranged marriages achieve. Still, Jon said, thank you. For this. For everything. For crowning me. For serving as hand. For giving up your own claim. I couldn't do this without you. You could, Robb said, but you'd be miserable. And you'd probably make terrible decisions. So I'm staying. Making sure you don't accidentally start a civil war or offend someone important. That's what brothers do. We're cousins. Jon corrected with a slight smile. We're brothers, Robb said firmly. Blood doesn't change that. We grew up together. Fought together, we're pack. That's all that matters, they embraced. And Jon felt the weight of everything they were attempting, the alliances they were building, the war they were preparing to fight, the throne they were trying to claim. It was overwhelming, terrifying, impossible, but they were doing it anyway, because someone had to, because the realm needed leadership, because the Lannisters had to be stopped, and because Jon had accepted the crown, had taken on the burden, had committed to seeing this through to the end, whatever that end might be. Epilogue. The coalition forms 3 weeks later. Word reached King's Landing of what Jon had accomplished. Cersei Lannister read the reports with mounting horror. The Mountain was dead. Had confessed to murdering Elia Martell and her children on Tywin's orders. The confession was spreading, copies sent to every major house in Westeros. And Dorne had allied with the Northern Pretender. This is a disaster, Cersei said to Tywin. They stood in the Red Keep's small council chamber. Gregor's confession makes you look like a child murderer, makes us look like monsters. Houses that were supporting us are reconsidering. It's a setback, Tywin admitted. His voice was calm, controlled. But Cersei could see the rage beneath. But not catastrophic. We still have the reach. We still control King's Landing. We have the largest army and the most gold. One confession doesn't change that. It changes everything, Cersei argued. The Tyrells are wavering. Mace keeps asking about Gregor's confession, about whether we really ordered the murders, about whether Joffrey's claim is legitimate. If we lose the Tyrells, we lose the war. Then we don't lose the Tyrells, Tywin said. We give them what they want, Marjorie as queen. Mace's hand once I step down. Whatever it takes to keep them committed. And if that's not enough, Cersei asked, if they decide Jon Stark's coalition is stronger than ours, then we remind them what happens to traitors, Tywin said coldly. We're Lannisters. We don't lose. We adapt. We overcome. We win. Always. But even Tywin's certainty couldn't quite hide the concern in his eyes. The Northern Dornish alliance was dangerous. Jon Stark was proving more capable than expected. And Gregor's confession had damaged Lannister legitimacy in ways that gold and armies couldn't repair. The game was changing. The pieces were moving. And for the first time since Robert's rebellion, House Lannister faced the real possibility of total defeat. At Highgarden, Mace Tyrell called his own council. The Northern King captured the Mountain, Mace said. Had him confess to murdering the Targaryen children on Tywin's orders. Now Dorne's allied with him. The North, Riverlands, and Dorne. That's a significant coalition. And he's legitimately Rhaegar's son, Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns observed. Which gives him a better claim than Stannis or Joffrey. Stannis is Robert's brother, but Robert took the throne by conquest. Jon Stark descends from the proper royal line. That matters to houses with Targaryen loyalist history. So what do we do? Mace asked. Do we stay with the Lannisters, or do we switch to Jon Stark? We wait, Olenna said. We watch. We see which side is winning. And then we commit to the winner at the crucial moment. That's what Tyrells do. We don't pick sides early. We pick the winning side at exactly the right time. And Marjorie? Mace asked. She's supposed to marry Joffrey. If we switch sides, do we offer her to Jon Stark instead? Obviously, Olenna said. Marjorie's role is to become queen. The husband is interchangeable. Joffrey's probably a sadist and will get himself killed within 5 years. Jon Stark seems honorable and stable. From a practical standpoint, he's the better match. So we wait, Mace said. Watch the war develop, and position ourselves to support whoever wins. Exactly, Olenna agreed. We're Tyrells. We don't gamble. We invest in certainties. And right now, with the North, Riverlands, and Dorne allied against the Lannisters, I'd say Jon Stark is becoming a very attractive certainty. The pieces continued to move. The alliances continued to form. And across the Seven Kingdoms, lords and ladies calculated their positions, measured their odds, prepared for the war that would decide the realm's future. Jon Stark had built a coalition. North, Riverlands, Dorne. Perhaps the Reach if Marjorie's marriage could be negotiated. Against them stood the Lannisters. The Crown lands. What remained of Stannis' shattered forces? The war was far from over, but the sides were drawn. The battle lines established, the final confrontation approaching. And at the center of it all stood Jon Snow, Jon Stark, Jon Targaryen, the bastard who became a king, the boy who accepted a crown he didn't want because the realm needed him. He stood on Sunspear's walls and looked north toward King's Landing, toward the Iron Throne, toward his destiny. "Are you ready?" Robb asked, joining him. "No," Jon admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." "That's all anyone can ask," Robb said. "You're doing it. You're building the coalition. You're making this possible. Father would be proud." "I hope so," Jon said. "Because if this goes wrong, if we fail, a lot of people die for nothing. And that would be on me." "Then we don't fail," Robb said simply. "We fight. We win. We take King's Landing. We put you on the throne. And we prepare the realm for what's really coming. That's the plan, and we're going to execute it." Jon nodded, touched the crown on his head, the bronze and iron circlet with 9 longsword spikes. The weight of it still pressed down, still reminded him of the burden he carried. But he would carry it, however long it took, however much it cost, because he'd made his choice, accepted his duty, committed to seeing this through. "For the North," Jon said. "For the realm," Robb added. "For the living," Jon finished. "Against the darkness that's coming." They stood together on the walls and watched the sun set over Dorne. Tomorrow they would begin planning the march on King's Landing, begin coordinating with their allies, begin the final phase of the war. But tonight, they stood together. Brothers, pack, united in purpose. And somewhere in the distance the darkness gathered. The true enemy waited. The war that mattered drew closer. But Jon would be ready, with his crown and his allies and his duty. Ready to stand against whatever came. Ready to be the king the realm needed. Ready to fulfill the prophecy, or die trying. Let us know what you would like to see next. The end. She survived. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.